Hi, I'm Joyce Krieger, founder of Art Specifier. This is ArtLink, conversations with artists and art professionals. My guest today is Chitra Ramanathan. She comes to us all the way from Vero Beach, Florida. Welcome, Chitra. Nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Chitra is an amazing painter with very large, huge canvases and has had a lot of success in her life, and I really want her to tell us a little bit about her background because Chitra is from India, and I think that's played a big influence in her life, and I want her to tell you about it.
So I began my art career, or so to speak, when I was 4 years old. My family, 4 years old, my family put me in an art school for children. And it was just a weekend art school, other than my regular school days. And so there I took a liking to visual art because they used to teach different art forms, and I took, according to my mom. So I started there, and I used to enter art competitions.
At 4?
4 onwards, you know, for children, young children, and then middle school, high school, through high school.
Now, were you doing abstract things then, or were you doing
what children normally
portraits
do? There was a beautiful lake area near our home. I used to paint that surrounding because we used to go to the park often, and just sit there, and I used to sketch. So some of those paintings actually got noticed by an organization called Birla Academy of Fine Arts, and I had entered a competition where I had won a silver trophy, and so the head of the government arts college, he was a famous sculptor, passed away about 10 years ago. He came to hand me the trophy, and that was really special because they also put my winning entry and all the other entries that I had sent in. So it was a solo exhibition for a child of 11.
So this was your first chance to feel success?
I think so. At the time, I was just happy being there, I think. I don't remember because I was a child and I was just happy that, oh, yeah, somebody's giving me something. Never mind even if it was made of silver or a bit. Prior to that, there was a national coloring contest. And it was very publicized because it was by a major organization called, I forget its name now, but they've changed the name. But they had this amazing, very famous jury panel. And because of that, it won national recognition when I was declared one of the winners. It's just a random
That's pretty exciting.
Thing, yeah.
Now, at what point did you decide that you wanted to be an artist? When did you come to this country? What kind of family do you have? What kind of an education do you have? I want it all.
Oh, absolutely. So my path was very clear. I thought this is amazing. One success led to another, small prizes all along. Usually it was silver trophies, it was medals, and that kind of thing. And so when I got to college, I knew I wanted to.
And you went to college in India?
In India for the first time.
Where in India?
It was the University of Madras at the time. It was a Catholic institution called Stella Maris, and they had a fine arts program. So I got my baccalaureate degree in fine arts there, and then married, and I was
married in India.
In India.
Now, I know that you were painting, at this point, representational things. Had you started painting abstractly yet?
Not in India.
Okay.
Not in India. It was mostly, I got very interested in oil painting and portraits. So at the time I was growing up already, I was doing a lot of portraits of family members and my parents' friends. And so I was very interested in portraiture.
Now, what made you take an MBA? Because I know you got an MBA in museum studies.
Much later, because what happened was I moved to the country, and then, long story short, I wanted to go back to school, but then the programs are different. They're more,
In this country?
in this country.
So you moved when you were how old?
I was in my 20s.
Oh, okay.
And when I moved, and this is 1984 now, and 1991 is when I joined the University of Illinois, because before we were not in Illinois, and I joined the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. So they said, well, you're lacking certain studio level courses that need to be,
So what was the
taken care of.
first painting that you did?
So the first painting I did there was an abstract representation of there are major epics in India, and that I just found some house paint in the students' studios where I was allotted a space, and the house paint, I just took this house paint and I made 2 figures on a chariot with 3 horses. And it was sort of abstract. It was not really a very representational painting. Anyway, I had to explain my way through it because nobody knew what it was all about, because one of the figures was blue, and it is a mythological incarnation of,
When did you do manifestation?
So when I started there, I think something clicked there. And of course, the school had an abstract orientation. Most people were doing a lot of
in
abstract
Illinois.
In Illinois, at the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. Now, that kind of inspired me, and they said, well, I asked them, what am I going to paint? What am I painting? I'm, 10 years and I've done something at home, but where do I start? And they said, just go for it. Do whatever you want, and to any scale you want. Everything is free game here. That kind of excited me. I said, my goodness, I'm such a schooled person, because in India they really teach you what to do, and they get upset if you do something else, and they're very didactic in that sense. And here I was this
So we
very
talked
free
a little
person.
bit before the show about intuitive painting. Can you tell our audience a little bit about what that means to you and how one would go about doing an intuitive painting?
Yeah, and I have often talked to my students about it, so I'm very comfortable saying that. I think for me, at that point, I went to France. I got an opportunity as a student to go to Paris and be there for the entire summer. And I saw the Impressionists paint there, the paintings rather. And I got the opportunity to go to Giverny often during the 3 months. And I was just
taken
there. And I said, my goodness, it's so. The Impressionists painted, something that was very spontaneous, captured the fleeting moment, and I said, my goodness, what exactly makes me want to do things? I'm happy. I'm very happy to paint. So it's an emotion of the mind that I want to express in a 2-dimensional surface like
So
painting.
that's what you would describe as intuitive painting.
Yes, and so the concept is intuitive in that sense too, because after all, you cannot see happiness. You can only express it. And how do you express it? So I think inevitably
A lot of your paintings, by the way, have joyful names: exuberance, effusion, exhilaration.
Yes.
So joyfulness is part of your personality and your persona.
Yes. So I think then it's a complex subject because you can see it and you can only feel it. And that feeling is also a different concept for each person.
Going back to manifestation, approximately when did you do that piece?
That piece, actually, I started at the university as a student. Now, I took this enormous piece of canvas, unprimed, and I said, oh my gosh, I'm inspired by some of those cave paintings in India, and I am just going to go for it. So I used very compatible looking material like
But
chalk.
you used very bright colors in that painting.
Yes, I did.
More than some of the others.
Yes, I did. I thought, oh, this is about happiness. I'm happy, but at the same time, I have a concept, and it's the cave paintings, and they're to me they're very, very colorful, happy paintings. And it's not just one region. Different parts of India have different types of painting.
And did that get sold ultimately?
Manifestation did not get sold because I kind of worked at it. Initially, it started as a bare bone piece, And then
It grew.
and it grew. And it's one of those paintings where I think every time I go back to it, it just talks to me.
So is it finished?
It is now finished. I really feel it's finished, and it's got all the
It is
colors.
finished?
Yes, it
Oh,
is.
okay.
And it's still there, so it's in my private collection still. It is one of those paintings I think I worked at it intuitively, but I did feel like, no, I need to stop here. I need to go back to this. Something speaks to you within.
Oh, of
says,
course.
you know,
Of
yeah.
all of the paintings that you've ever done, what's the one painting that you loved the most? Is it like your children, the last one that was born?
It's very hard for me to say because because it's like a big thematic body of work. It's hard for me to say which one's my absolute favorite, but I can certainly say, pick some. Manifestation is one because it really challenged me in that sense.
What about Effusion?
Effusion was an amazing work. I had it in my studio, and I don't know what hit me because those colors are so different from some of my other paintings. There's a kind of green there that I don't usually go for that much green. But then I started to see images in it that I felt, oh gosh, this is amazing. What are these images anyway? But I'm doing it. So it went back and forth, and I finished it, and then it was sold to somebody in California.
And most of these works, because our audience we have lots of artists that watch this. How did it get sold? They're always interested. How did you sell your work?
Yeah.
And as an MBA, did that help you?
No, actually, I had become a member of the College Art Association in New York, and I was at the annual conference in LA, it was 1999, and there's this person who was just developing the website, and she came over to me and she said, would you, if you have a sleeve slides, you can give it to us and we will look at it. So I did. Usually I take these things, and then they called me back and said, you know what, we'd love to have you on our website. And there they sold a lot of my work.
This is the College Art Association?
No,
Oh,
it
this
is not
is Next
connected
Monet.
to the college. Yeah, it is nextmonet.com at the time.
Right.
They are no more there, I think. If they're listening to this, maybe they are somewhere. But they sold a lot of work. Of course, I had no idea about pricing, so I just priced them as a new artist would.
So I know that your biggest success was the Bellagio Hotel. Tell us a little bit about how that happened and what were those pieces. How did you get the commission? What happened?
So Next Monet had a lot of my images at the time, and this was 2004, and there was a call from the Bellagio's, not the Bellagio, but the MGM Resorts International, as they call, MGM Mirage/MGM Resorts. And there was a call from the purchasing manager saying, we came across a couple of your paintings, and I asked them, from where did you find them? And they said nextmonet.com. And they said, well, there are two pieces that we like, and we would, if you don't mind, can you make them, enlarge the same things to 4
So they
feet by 6
commissioned
feet.
you.
They commissioned me. And they commissioned
Had you ever
me.
been commissioned before?
Not that time. At that time, that was my first.
Were you nervous?
No, I don't know why, but I was.
How big were the paintings ultimately?
So 4 feet across and 6 feet.
That's a big
high.
painting.
Yeah, 2 of those images. And they said, well, if these 2, and what we would like to do is we're going to do this over a 6-month period because we are refurbishing the Cafe Bellagio, and that's the space we want this for. So would you do it? I said, sure. And so we exchanged color swatches, and they okayed, because as the work on the Cafe Bellagio progressed, they were doing the wall space. And so they used some of the colors in my paintings so that it would be compatible with the wall.
Would you consider that one of your biggest successes?
I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because they had absolutely no restrictions imposed on me at all.
Well, they had what they saw that they
saw.
liked, so you had to at least be informed by those pieces, correct?
Yeah, and I think one thing with me, I'm never nervous about doing something, a commission. I don't
Is
feel,
everything oils, or do you mix it with pastels and other mixed media?
Yes, I do. Mixed media, my basic material now is acrylics. That's my basic medium. Now, as time went on, and I was talking about manifestation some time ago, that I now use a lot of collage materials, but the collage materials are not just adhered to the surface. I like to work with them, as incorporated into the paint.
So what type of collage materials?
They can be found objects, they can be string, they can be a lot of textural, materials like even paper, textured paper. Sometimes I will use, like I said, I don't go for any kind of text imagery, but other than that, everything is fair game.
So do you ever used fabric?
Yes, I did. Yes, I have. And I love that. Of course, because I'm a schooled artist, I know certain materials will disintegrate over time, and I don't want that to happen. And the other thing with acrylics, this is the reason I love acrylics, because I work very intuitively, and I work really fast, and it dries fast.
But you said you worked on an unprimed canvas a while back.
Yes.
Are all your canvases unprimed?
No, actually, as time went by, because I'm putting so much of material, towards the surface. Now, it really doesn't matter if it's unprimed or not, because in the earlier works, the unprimed canvas showed through, and I love that because I had this novel idea where I said, I've done batik. It's a process that you wash colors and then
put wax on it.
Yes, and then when you wash the wax, the undersurface peeps through in the paint, then you put another layer of paint, and so on. So that's a process, and I'm always interested in process. It's exciting. And so I started washing those canvases. I used tempera, I used chalk, and I used the acrylics, but then they were very detail-oriented. So there were a lot of marks, and I just threw them in the washing machine. These large canvases.
Oh my goodness.
And when they came
giving away your trade secrets.
I brought them out, and I could see randomly, the marks that were there, but then some had gone, but some were there.
So you like that peeking through,
that
layering and layering and layering.
I suspect that's one of the reasons I like that feeling, that there are forms in my work now that almost say, okay, there's a form there, but it's really not a recognizable form. And there are details peeking in and out and that kind of thing.
That's a very interesting, I think our audience is going to enjoy knowing that. Tell me a little bit about Purple Dream.
So one of the first paintings was Purple Dream, where it's very, if you know about Indian motifs, there's a lot of that there. This is one of my first paintings. It's a very large painting. It's again in feet. And so that's again washed, repainted, washed, repainted.
Is that primed or unprimed?
That was unprimed. And so the colors just came, because purple is a strong color. And so purple being the main color in that, it's withstood that bright color there.
Prince would have liked it.
Yes.
Prince was favored his Purple Dream.
Yes.
Meditation. Tell me a little bit about that.
So meditation now came along, and I said, that's where I'm inspired by the cave paintings that I was talking to you about earlier. And I said, oh my gosh, this is an expansive canvas. And
that's my favorite, by the way. I love that one.
Thank you.
You tell that was 100 and some odd inches?
So it's 107 inches wide, and it's 57.7 inches high.
Did you wash that one too?
Yes.
Oh my goodness. I've never heard that before. I have one artist that I know that I've worked with that actually washes his canvas in the river because he likes the rocks and everything beating up against them.
Yes.
But I've never heard of putting it in the washing machine, but why not? I mean, it's sort of, you always learn a little bit something new each time.
Yeah.
So how did coming to America influence your work?
Here I was in a different culture. Now I had gone to school, done a lot of art, and my feeling was but I have my background, but I don't feel what I used to feel in India. I think you have to live somewhere to really.
You think it was more restrained in India?
At least teaching in India is extremely disciplined in that sense. I'd call it discipline for lack of a better word, because I was 6 years old. I was in this art school, and I was doing the seascape, just sitting on the floor. Children were given all this paint, some watercolors, and I was doing the seascape. And this is an example I'm giving you, and I'm 6 years old here. And while I was painting, the person said, the teacher said, "Why did you put all that black?" I said, "You know, there's boats, and I put the shadow." He yelled at me.
Oh, really?
So
there was a different freedom when you came.
Very different, because they really want you to do things. Okay, there's a boat, there's the sea, and why would you put a big dash of black without asking me, that kind of thing. So I remember that to this day. But that's how, and I think they want you to excel. It's a good intention. But here there was all that freedom, and I said, oh my gosh, some people would not be comfortable, but I was. I felt like, wow, this is great.
Can you talk a little bit about coruscation?
So coruscation is one of those pieces where it was done really fast. It's a small piece, 18 inches by 24 inches. And I was connected with both the museum, and I was teaching at the Indianapolis Art Center, and she was a staffer at the Indianapolis Museum of Art. She just took my class, loved my work. She bought it for her organization, remains my best friend to this day. So she bought that painting. Now that's one of the paintings that the Bellagio had chosen.
Oh.
So that was inspired, and then that painting itself has a lot of collage in it, and textural materials that are, just added on with the paint. And there are areas on the bottom right that really appear to come at you,
like almost three-dimensional.
Almost that. I'm also very interested in trying to manipulate the two-dimensional surface so that it looks like the two-dimensional surface is trying to become a little, at least, if not three-dimensional, but at least low.
Have you ever done sculpture?
Yes, dabbled in sculpture. I loved sculpture.
What advice would you give to artists that might be out there starting out as to how to get their career started? For example, do they wait until a gallery finds them? Do they go and pursue a gallery? Do they work on the internet? Do they find a local restaurant and exhibit? What would you recommend?
All of what you mentioned. I think as
so
artists,
self-promotion.
I think so. Unfortunately, that's part, because if you have beautiful work, but it's just sitting there and nobody is able to see it. I tell my students, hey, exhibit your work.
Are you still
can't eat it,
Are you still teaching?
Yes, I am.
So you're teaching at Indianapolis? No, you're teaching in Vero Beach.
Yes. Yes.
And how old are the students? College level or?
They are very senior students, because it's a senior community, and the museum has members that patronize the museum, as well as these are retirees, many of them, and then we do have young students. Not everybody is, but
I
majority.
bet that's very rewarding, because you open up, many of them probably have never done anything like that before.
That's what they say. They claim that they never painted before, but now they want to take a class. And the best thing is they're able to research the internet and find the type of instructor that they would like to take a class from. So they come informed about my work, and okay, now we want, and of course, indeed, I'm teaching abstract painting, acrylic painting, and mixed media painting, and all that. But they come informed, and they claim that they've never painted, but they're so excited, and they're very interested in learning, which is very fulfilling.
I was going to say, when you look at somebody who's never picked up a paintbrush before, and you see them create something, it has to be a real, I know I had this with my husband. He had never picked up a paintbrush in his life, and I encouraged him to do it and taught him a few things. And within a short period of time, he had actually done 17 paintings. and they were amazing. And he really had never painted before. So it's not always all the education that you have. Sometimes it's your soul and your heart. And one thing that, you know, I always am asked, why should a corporation buy artwork? And, you know, my answer is always very simple. It's about first impressions. It takes literally 0.3 of a second for someone to walk in a room and someone to form an impression about them. And when you hang a piece of art in a hotel like you did, or in a corporation, people walk in and the first thing they see is something that is either interesting, it's really what the company wants to portray and what the company wants to tell you about them if they do a good job. And because it's hung eye level, it's like the first thing people see. So it's so important to make that first impression for a hotel or a company, because they want to attract guests, they want to keep their clients, they want to attract new people and employees to work there. So I find that artwork has a really important place in corporate environments as well as in restaurants. And if you have a chance as an artist to display your work in one of those places, it gets seen, and you have an opportunity like you have when you showed at the Bellagio and they bought those pieces. It launched your career.
Yes,
I mean, you raised your prices, you felt more confident. It was definitely one of those pivotal moments in your career.
Yes, and I think the Bellagio Commission, for instance, they allowed me to sign the work. And so I have a steady stream of photographs or somebody writing to me saying, hey, we went to the Bellagio, we saw your work. And the latest example last year was the founder of a chain, a restaurant chain, and he said, you know, I've been looking at your work in the Bellagio, I've been going there. And the second thing is, I read that you spent time in Claude Monet's garden in Giverny.
Oh.
Based on your experiences, would you make me a triptych painting? And of course, that was a very, very pleasant experience. Wonderful person to work. I said, I'm a teacher, so I'm going to send you, periodically as I'm doing this piece, I'm going to send you examples.
Progressive.
Yeah, he never said anything. He didn't say anything. He said, just paint this for me. I said, no, I'll send it to you. I'll email it to you. If you want me to add something, I'm happy to do that. So it was a delightful experience.
One last question, because we're going to have to wrap up. I ask this to a lot of my artists. What does art mean to you?
Everything. I think I spent my entire life painting. So I think if I'm sad, I think of my paintings. If I'm happy, I think of my paintings. It's just something that I think the frustration with many artists is they don't have enough time to paint. They would like to do more. So it's always that feeling that I want to improve, I want to do more. This idea is exciting, let me do this. You know, let me see how it is when I put that stuff down.
Art is life.
Yes.
Chitra, thank you so much
Thank
for coming
you.
all the
It
way
is-
from Vero Beach, Florida.
Thank you, it's been my pleasure.